Get this girl away from the entrance before she turns this into a circus. Eleanor Rothwell didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. Her tone, cool, surgical, dripping with inherited power, cut through the lobby of the Aurora Contemporary Gallery in San Francisco. The young black woman in front of her flinched as a manicured hand shoved her shoulder. She stumbled backward, her navy thrift store dress snagging on the corner of a champagne table. Glasses rattled, one toppled. A ripple of amused gasps moved through the room like a low wave. Liam Rothwell, Eleanor's 24-year-old son and full-time content creator, was already filming. He tilted his phone for the best angle, zooming in on the girl's face. "Oh my God, guys," he muttered to his 300K followers on his live stream. "This is prime Delulu content." She really thought she could just walk into a $12,000 plate gala. His comments exploded in real time, LMAO. Not her thinking she belongs there. Security, do your job. Sienna Rothwell, 26, influencer in a crystal-encrusted gown, yanked the embossed invitation out of the girl's hand like she was pulling weeds. She waved it over her head. "Everybody, look at this. Somebody printed themselves a fantasy on Canva and thought it was a golden ticket." She tore it down the middle. Then again. Then again. The shredded pieces drifted to the polished concrete floor of the gallery like confetti. Except there was nothing celebratory about it. The girl bent to pick up the fragments, fingers trembling just enough for the cameras to catch. A semicircle of donors, tech founders, political consultants, and board members slowly closed in, forming an elegant, predatory ring around her. Nearly every hand held a phone. She stayed kneeling, gathering the torn invitation with deliberate care. "Have you ever watched someone get dismantled in real time?" Liam said to his live. "By people who are just trying to protect the guest list?" His viewers flooded the comments. "She's gonna cry any second. Why is she even still there? Second-hand embarrassment is killing me." Two security officers in dark suits stepped forward, one older, one younger. The older one, Miguel Alvarez, had the weary eyes of someone who'd seen too many incidents dressed up as policy. Behind them, the gallery's executive director, Dr. Helena Crane, hurried over with a tablet pressed against her chest like a shield. "Ma'am," Miguel said quietly to the young woman, "I just need to verify your invitation. Then we can sort this out." "There is nothing to verify," Eleanor snapped, turning to the widening circle like a seasoned stage actress. "The evidence is on the floor. Cheap print job, wrong paperweight, bad embossing. This is a fake, and she knows it." She looked the girl up and down, taking inventory. Simple dress, off-brand heels, natural hair in a neat puff. "This is a Founders Circle event," Eleanor continued, "not a walk-in open house." Helena glanced at her tablet, frowning. "The Cole Horizons Foundation is listed as tonight's presenting sponsor. Level Platinum. Donation amount, $150,000. The name on the guest list is—" "Anyone can steal a foundation name," Eleanor's husband, Gregory Rothwell, cut in as he stepped forward, phone still buzzing with emails. "Identity theft is a cottage industry. Our family office deals with this constantly." He flicked a bored glance at the girl. "What's your name?" he asked, like he was questioning a waiter about the menu. The young woman rose slowly. Her posture was unnervingly calm. "My name is Nia Cole," she said. Her voice was low but steady. "I'm here representing Cole Horizons." Sienna snorted into her phone. "Guys, she even gave herself a billionaire last name. Method acting could never." Comments cascaded down her IG live. "Not her picking Cole, girl. At least Google a realistic sponsor name." "Why is security entertaining this?" Nia's clutch buzzed. The screen lit briefly. "Dad, 7 missed calls. Dad, call back ASAP." She silenced it without looking away from the circle of faces. Eleanor's lip curled. Can someone explain why she still has a phone in her hand and not a security escort? Dr. Ott Crane's fingers skated across her tablet. Cole Horizons, yes. They wired the sponsorship 3 weeks ago. The signed agreement lists the primary contact as... She stopped reading. Her eyes widened as she scrolled. As Daniel Cole, founder and CEO of Cole Dynamics Global, she whispered. The name rippled through the crowd in overlapping murmurs. Cole Dynamics? The clean energy giant? Didn't they just hit $1 trillion valuation? Aren't they in talks with Rothwell Holdings for a rescue deal? Liam's live chat shifted from laughing emojis to question marks. Wait, is that the Cole? Someone Google this. This is getting interesting. Gregory's phone buzzed again. The caller ID flashed. Daniel Cole, priority. He killed the call with a thumb. Not now, he muttered. Sir, Miguel tried again quietly, torn between protocol and pressure. We're supposed to handle guest disputes privately in the security office. This is escalating. Private? Eleanor scoffed. Absolutely not. She chose to enter publicly. She can be escorted out publicly. Transparency protects the institution. A Manhattan donor in a velvet tux muttered. Honestly, just get her out. This is uncomfortable to watch. Another voice. Someone call the Chronicle. This is a story. Helena stepped closer to Naya. If you can show me any ID, we can clear this up faster. Before Naya could respond, Sienna planted herself between them, camera still live. There's nothing to clear up, she told her followers. We're protecting a brand-aligned environment here. This isn't a community fundraiser in a school gym. Nia's phone buzzed again, louder this time. Daniel Cole. Urgent. Several people near her caught the name on the screen. A woman near the front stilled. Naya. Cole, she repeated under her breath. Oh no. She lifted her own phone and started recording. A retired federal judge, Honor Marianne Adler, narrowed her eyes as she watched the dynamic play out. This looks like Exhibit A in a discrimination case, she murmured to her husband, who had started filming as well. Dr. Jordan Blake, a black cardiothoracic surgeon in a charcoal suit, shook his head. This is beyond protecting the guest list. This is targeted. Miguel shifted his weight, uncomfortable. Miss, he said softly to Nia, if you'd like, we can step aside and... No, Eleanor cut in, stepping between them. We're past that. We need to protect the experience for those who actually belong here. She turned to the circle like a hostess conducting a ritual. Friends, before tonight's auction, we're addressing a security breach. Some people don't understand that exclusivity exists for a reason. Phones tilted. Streams stayed live. The ring tightened. Nia stood in the center of all of it, still holding shredded cardstock in one hand and her silent phone in the other. No tears. No raised voice. Just a stillness that made a few people shift, uneasy. Liam leaned into his live, whispering, Guys, this is what happens when manifesting meets reality. She's frozen. It's honestly sad now. A cluster of junior staff by the catering station averted their eyes. They'd all seen a version of this before, just not filmed in 4K. Miguel exhaled. Miss, he said, louder now, feeling the weight of 200 eyes and 200 phones. I'm going to have to ask you to come with me and leave the gallery. Nia looked up at him. I understand you're just doing your job, Officer Alvarez, she said quietly. He stiffened. How do you know my name? She gave a small, tired smile. People who actually read the security policies and partnership agreements know more than you think. Then she lifted her phone and, with deliberate calm, hit speed dial. The call connected on the first ring. "Hey, Dad," she said, her voice suddenly carrying in the hush. "Yeah, I'm still at the Aurora event. I think you should hear what the Rothwell family really thinks about the communities your company funds." The entire room seemed to inhale at once. Helena's face drained of color. She jabbed at her tablet, scrolling frantically. "Cole Horizons, presenting sponsor, signed by, yes, Nia Danielle Cole," she whispered. "Oh my God." Judge Adler searched the name on her own phone. Her voice carried. "Daniel Cole," she read, "founder and CEO of Cole Dynamics Global, clean energy and tech conglomerate. Net worth estimated at $14.3 billion. Global philanthropy leader, primary architect of the Aurora Sustainability Initiative." Conversations broke. "You're kidding. That's his daughter? Tell me someone is screen recording this?" Liam's live chat detonated. "That's Cole's daughter? This family is so finished. Keep filming, do not stop." "I'm screen recording everything," Nia's tone cooled. "Just to recap for you, Dad," she said into the phone, never breaking eye contact with Eleanor. "They tore up our foundation's invitation, called it fake, said I was an embarrassment, that people like me contaminate their atmosphere." She tilted her head toward Liam. "Liam can send you the highlight reel. He's been broadcasting it to, what, 100,000 people?" His hand shook. The camera, now facing his own pale expression, captured every second. "Dad," Nia continued, "they've also been declining your calls all night. Something about handle your business later." Gregory finally dropped his phone to his side, knuckles white. The air in the Aurora gallery shifted in a single, brutal heartbeat. What had been content was now evidence. What had been entertainment was now a case study. Helena stepped forward, voice cracking. "Ms. Cole, I am so deeply sorry. We had no idea." "Oh, you had an idea," Nia replied softly. "Everyone here saw what you were comfortable with when you thought there were no consequences." The room fell into a silence heavy enough to be its own sound. On the phone, Daniel Cole's voice came through the speaker. Calm, measured, lethal. "Nia," he said, "stay exactly where you are. I'm 2 minutes away." 2 minutes felt like 2 hours. Conversations shrank to whispers. Phones still recorded, but hands weren't as steady. The massive glass doors at the front of the gallery slid open with a hiss that felt theatrical. Daniel Cole stepped in alone. Tall, dark navy suit, no tie. The kind of presence that didn't need an entourage to shift an entire room. He scanned the space once. His gaze landed on his daughter. Softened. "Are you okay?" he asked. Nia nodded. "I'm intact," she said. "Just enlightened." Then his eyes moved to the Rothwells. Eleanor, suddenly small without her performance. Liam, clutching his phone like a weapon that had ricocheted. Sienna, screen dark, face ashen. Gregory, sweat beading at his hairline. "Gregory," Daniel said, voice conversational, "I understand this is how your family manages brand risk." Gregory tried for composure. "Daniel, there's been a massive misunderstanding. If we'd known..." Daniel raised a hand. "If you'd known she was mine, you mean," he said. "Because you knew she was human. You just decided that wasn't enough." His assistant, Rhea Patel, stepped in behind him, tablet in hand. "Mr. Cole, the board is on standby. They've received the footage." She swiped, then read with business-like precision. "4 live videos posted by Liam Rothwell official tonight," she said. "Combined views, 392,000 and climbing. Content includes calling Ms. Cole delusional, suggesting she doesn't belong in civilized spaces, encouraging public ridicule." Liam opened his mouth. Rhea continued over him. 2 live streams from Sienna Living, cumulative 41,000 viewers. Content, mocking Ms. Cole's dress, implying she forged her invitation, celebrating her anticipated removal as quality content. Murmurs skated across the crowd. And Eleanor Rothwell, Rhea finished, on multiple videos physically grabs Ms. Cole, tears up her invitation, refers to her as this girl who needs to be taken out of sight. Eleanor's throat worked. Daniel, I made an awful mistake. I had no idea who she was. Again, that small, deadly tilt of Daniel's head. The problem, Eleanor, he said quietly, is that you made exactly the same decision millions of times tonight. Not about her identity, but about her worth. You decided she was beneath you. You decided she was disposable. You decided she was content. He glanced around the circle. And you all watched, he added. Some of you filmed, some of you laughed, a few of you flinched but stayed silent. That's the ecosystem we're talking about. Judge Adler stepped forward. Mr. Cole, for the record, I witnessed the entire interaction. What happened tonight was not a misunderstanding. It was targeted humiliation based on appearance and race. Dr. Blake nodded. I can corroborate that. Miguel shifted, guilt written across his face. Sir, I was following Mrs. Rothwell's instructions, he said. But I should have enforced policy. We're supposed to move things like this off the floor, immediately. Oh, I know protocol, Daniel replied. I read it before I signed the sponsorship contract. His gaze softened slightly. You were caught between a power imbalance and your job. I have more questions for your bosses than for you. Gregory tried one last angle. Daniel, surely this personal incident doesn't have to derail everything we've built toward, the strategic partnership. Let's talk about that partnership, Daniel said. Rhea tapped her tablet. A set of numbers appeared on the large LED wall behind the stage. Someone had connected her screen to the gallery system. Rothwell Holdings, she read. Current debt exposure, $1.4 billion, stock price down 69% year-to-date. Projected insolvency without recapitalization, 90 days. Gasps fluttered through the audience. With the Cole Dynamics infusion, she continued, projections show a return to stability in 18 months with a growth path beyond. She looked up. That was this morning, past tense, Daniel said softly. Was. Gregory swallowed hard. Daniel, thousands of jobs should have been on your mind when your family turned my daughter into a live-streamed spectacle, Daniel replied. You teach culture by what you tolerate. The whole room held its breath. Nia cleared her throat. Dad, she said quietly, can I propose something? Every phone in the room tracked her as she stepped slightly forward. The Rothwells showed us who they are when they think the hierarchy is safe, she said. But they could also show us who they're willing to become if they're serious about transformation. A flicker of hope crossed Eleanor's face. What are you suggesting? Daniel asked. Conditional partnership, Nia said, on terms that center accountability, not optics. She ticked off points on her fingers. Public apology, she began, fully recorded, fully owned, to everyone who witnessed tonight, including the staff you treated like they weren't in the room. Mandatory deep dive bias and equity training for your entire executive suite, your board, and your adult children. Not a one-day workshop, a year-long program with metrics. A $10 million fund seeded by Rothwell Holdings, dedicated to Black and brown founders, arts education, and workers' rights. Administered by a joint board that includes people who've lived on the other side of your power. And independent audits, she finished. Quarterly culture and diversity audits, performed by someone who doesn't owe you anything. Results published, not buried. She looked straight at Eleanor. And if you fail those audits, she said, the deal dissolves. Publicly. The room hummed with a different kind of electricity now. Less voyeurism, more reckoning. Daniel studied his daughter for a long moment. A slow, proud smile touched his eyes. "That's a better term sheet than the one my bankers brought me," he said. Then to Gregory, "You heard her? Those are the conditions, not negotiable." Gregory looked around, at the phones, at the donors, at Judge Adler, at the staff in black shirts along the wall, watching everything. He saw, maybe for the first time, how small his leverage actually was. "If we say no," he asked hoarsely. Then, Daniel said, "You will have 90 days, maybe less once this footage circulates, to explain to your employees, your creditors, and your board why their livelihoods collapsed because you couldn't treat one black woman with basic respect." 30 seconds of silence stretched out like a tightrope. Finally, Gregory exhaled. "We accept," he said, "all of it." Eleanor's voice wobbled. "We'll do whatever it takes," she added. I don't want to be this person anymore." Liam glanced at his still-recording phone. His chat was full of, "This is wild accountability terms are crazy. Low-key respect the daughter. This better go viral." Daniel's phone buzzed. He checked the notification. "Board meeting postponed to tomorrow at 10 a.m., he said. "You have 18 hours to start proving that this is more than panic." He glanced at Helena. "And Dr. Crane, the Aurora will be expected to adopt similar protocols if you want Cole Horizons to remain a sponsor." Culture isn't a spectator sport. Then he turned to his daughter. "You ready to go?" he asked. She nodded, slipping her phone into her clutch, the torn invitation still tucked there like a relic. As they walked toward the doors, phones followed them, but this time, the comment section sounded different. She handled that like a boss, not revenge, strategy. "This is how you leverage power clip this for every DEI training." The glass doors closed behind them with a quiet hiss. The story, of course, was nowhere near over. 6 months later, the Aurora Contemporary Gallery hosted a very different crowd. The crystal installations were still there. The art was still priceless. But the signage read, "The Harbor Accord Summit Corporate Responsibility, Equity, and Repair, presented by Cole Dynamics and Rothwell Holdings." Dr. Helena Crane stood at the podium. No tablet shield this time, just notes and a steadier gaze. "Half a year ago," she began, "this building was the site of a public humiliation that could have destroyed careers and reputations, and for many, it almost did. Instead, by the grace of accountability, it became a catalyst for structural change." In the front row, the Rothwells looked different. Eleanor in a simple slate dress, no diamonds, pen moving steadily over a small notebook. Sienna in a blazer and jeans, camera pointed not at herself but at the speakers. Liam with a mic pinned to his shirt, filming a sober docu-series instead of prank content. Gregory, posture less inflated, hair more gray, listening like a man who finally understood that his power was conditional. Helena clicked to a slide. 6 months ago," she said, "Rothwell Holdings leadership metrics look like this: 4% Black and Latinx leaders, 15% women in executive roles, 1% of major suppliers owned by people of color." Soft murmurs. "Today," she continued, "under the terms of the Harbor Accord, 29% of leadership roles are held by Black, Latinx, and other underrepresented groups. 49% of executive positions are held by women. 32% of top-tier supplier contracts are with minority-owned businesses." Polite applause rose, then strengthened. Dr. Amara Ruiz, the newly appointed Chief Equity and Culture Officer, poached from a rival firm at Daniel's suggestion, joined her on stage. "These aren't just numbers," Amara said. "They're humans who were sitting in your applicant pools and entry-level roles for years, blocked by bias you called fit." The screen showed faces and short quotes. A former warehouse worker now leading logistics in the Southwest. A black engineer whose rejected proposal was now saving the company millions. A single mother promoted out of a stagnant assistant role into product management. Then came Eleanor. She took the microphone like someone approaching a confessional, not a stage. "6 months ago," she began, "I tore up a young woman's invitation and, worse, tried to tear down her dignity." Her voice trembled, then steadied. "I called her presence a contamination of our space. I framed cruelty as standards. I turned my prejudice into a performance." She clicked a slide. Photos appeared of her in places she would never have visited before. A community college classroom, a South Oakland youth center, a church basement turned financial literacy hub. "I have spent these months listening," she said, "to hotel workers, to delivery drivers, to black and brown professionals who've spent entire careers being doubted and diminished, to my own staff who were too afraid to tell me what they actually saw when they looked at me." A murmur of recognition rolled through the room. "Redemption is not a PR strategy," she said. "It is a lifetime of choosing to be uncomfortable in service of something larger than your ego." The applause this time was softer, but real. Liam stepped up next, his phone in hand, facing the audience instead of himself. "My videos that night have been viewed over 3 million times," he said. "A year ago, that would have felt like a win. Now I understand they were an indictment." He held up his phone, screen facing the big display. "This is my channel now," he said. Series title, Privilege Check Live. Last week's episode, interviewing security guards, janitors, and caterers about how wealthy guests treat them. 1.1 million views. Comments full of people saying, "I never noticed this before. I see it now." He shrugged. "If my mistake bought me a platform, the least I can do is use it to dismantle the mindset that created the mistake." Sienna followed, sharing how her follower count initially crashed when she shifted away from luxury hauls toward content on wealth inequality and access. How she lost brand deals, then built new partnerships with organizations funding scholarships and legal aid. "Influence without responsibility is just noise," she said. "I was very loud. Now I'm trying to be useful." Gregory took the mic last. "In boardrooms," he said, "we love clean metrics and tidy dashboards, so let me give you some numbers." He clicked. "Our turnover in frontline roles has dropped 26%, he said. "Productivity has increased 21%. Our stock, which was circling the drain, is now up 38% since we signed the Harbor Accord. We didn't lose efficiency by centering equity. We unlocked it." The room leaned in. This was the language CEOs understood. "Old me would have called this soft stuff," Gregory admitted. "Now I call it the best risk management and innovation strategy we've ever implemented." Then he stepped aside for Daniel. Daniel Cole walked up. "No slides, no notes. The question I've been asked most often," he said, "is why we didn't just walk away. Why not let Rothwell collapse and move on with a partner whose family wouldn't need such a dramatic intervention?" He gave a small, wry smile. "Because demolition is easy," he said. "Transformation is harder, but it scales better." He gestured around the room. "You've all seen what happens when we tie capital to culture, revenue to repair, growth to genuine inclusion," he said. "We call it the Harbor Accord because it's meant to be a safe landing point for companies brave enough to admit they're not where they should be. Yet." He nodded toward Nia, seated near the front with a slim folder in her lap. Of course. The architect of all this is the person who stood calm in the middle of that circle 6 months ago. Applause rose as Nia walked to the stage. She stood where she'd once been surrounded and scrutinized, now under entirely different lights. 6 months ago, she began. I stood in this building while people with money and status called me a trespasser. They tore up my invitation, mocked my clothes, and tried to escort me out of a space my family paid to keep open. She paused, letting the weight of that hang. Today, I'm here as Vice President of Social Impact at Coal Dynamics, co-author of the Harbor Accord, and co-owner of a partnership that now employs thousands of people under a different leadership paradigm. She clicked her first slide. It showed scholarship recipients, newly promoted employees, small business owners signing supplier contracts. The point is not that I won, she said. The point is that when power is forced to look at itself honestly, it can either double down on harm or pivot into growth that reaches far beyond one night and one family. The audience stood as she finished. That night, the Rothwells showed us the worst of who they were. These months, they've shown us glimpses of who they can become when accountability isn't optional, but designed into the business model. 2 years later, Nia stood not in a gallery but in Geneva at the Global Council on Corporate Justice, addressing delegates from nearly every country on Earth. 2 years ago, she said, I was surrounded by phones in a museum lobby while wealthy guests voted with their silence on whether my dignity mattered. She let the memory flicker and fade. Today, the Harbor Accord framework has been adopted by over 1,500 corporations across 28 countries. Complaints of discrimination in participating organizations have dropped by a third. Representation in leadership has climbed by nearly 90% in some sectors. But even those numbers don't tell the whole story. Behind her, the main screen displayed not charts, but faces and headlines. A logistics company that rewrote its promotion criteria. A global hotel chain that overhauled how it treated housekeeping staff. A fintech startup that made diversity metrics part of executive bonus structures and watched its innovation pipeline explode. The camera panned briefly to the Rothwells in the audience. Eleanor, now a certified equity consultant, had just published a book titled The 800 Million Lesson, Unlearning Privilege in Public. The required first chapter in every training she ran was a raw, unedited transcript of her behavior that night at the Aurora. In an interview for a documentary, she looked into the lens and said, "The worst thing I ever did is also the most useful thing I can offer the world now, as a warning and as proof that change is possible if you're willing to be broken open." Liam's channel, A Perspective Shift, boasted 3.5 million followers. His most watched series, Conversations I Used to Avoid, showed him sitting with nurses, bus drivers, formerly incarcerated entrepreneurs, asking questions he would once have mocked. Sienna's platform had morphed into a bridge between influencers and grassroots organizers, funneling money and attention toward housing justice, education equity, and digital access. Gregory spoke at investor conferences about ESG as survival, not branding, opening with the now infamous clip of his family surrounding Nia in that gallery. Once you see yourself on the wrong side of a viral moment like that, he told one audience, you stop asking, will this cost us money? And start asking, why did we think this was acceptable in the first place? Back in Geneva, Nia concluded her address. Every leader in this room, she said, will face moments where it's easier to protect comfort than to protect dignity. Easier to close ranks than to open doors. Easier to punish the person who doesn't fit than to interrogate the system that made them an outsider. She leaned into the microphone, voice steady. The question is not if those moments will come. The question is who you'll be when they do. She let the silence sit, then offered a path. If you've witnessed discrimination in your company, your industry, your social circles, document it. Tell the truth about it. Don't just whisper in side chats. Share your story. Push for protocols instead of hoping culture will magically improve. If you know leaders who embody inclusive practice, name them. Celebrate them publicly. Tag them into the conversation. Culture scales faster when courage isn't isolated. If you're a consumer or investor, look under the hood. Are the companies you support performing diversity for marketing decks? Or embedding justice in how they hire, promote, pay, and partner? She paused, then smiled, not sweet, but steady. And if you're someone who has been humiliated, dismissed, or told you don't belong, remember this: your worth is not up for committee vote. The people who try hardest to shrink you are often terrified of what will happen when you stand at your full height. The assembly hall rose in a standing ovation. Somewhere in a modest editing bay in Oakland, Liam cut that final line into a video titled, "Dignity is Not Negotiable." Don't forget to subscribe to Black Stories Alltimes and turn on notifications. Black Stories Alltimes brings you stories that you won't see anywhere else. Stories that make you think, question, and never forget. Share this with someone who needs to see how quiet strength can change everything. And remember, every story has a twist waiting to be understood.